Hi, Tom Anderson, day 45 of 100 Days of Thankfulness. Today we're talking about the importance of obedience, and also I want to share with you why I'm so thankful for actor Kirk Cameron. So yesterday I started talking about salvation and the importance of salvation, and I was describing an example where I had sold my house to buy some medicine to save someone's life. That's kind of describes salvation on a small scale, whereas Jesus was all about salvation on a big scale. It's eternal life in heaven. But I'm using that purely hypothetical example to try to help illustrate the concepts of grace and obedience in a way that makes sense. So yesterday I talked about it in terms of the grace side. Today I want to talk about it in terms of the obedience side. So the grace is the medicine was a free gift. It wasn't like this person had to do anything in order to earn that medicine. I just gave it to them freely in the same way that Jesus offers it to all of us freely. Obedience is after you've come to realize the truth. You've already accepted Jesus. You've already received that salvation. There's this idea out there, even amongst Christians, amongst all kinds of religions, that obedience is all about doing good things so that we can earn that salvation, earn that way into heaven. When in reality, as a Christian, if you really understand what Jesus did for you on the cross, that's like the first thing that happens. The first thing that happens is you're saved. You receive your salvation even before you've learned to become obedient. Your obedience is simply a natural response to what God has done for you. In the same way that if I had sold my house in order to buy the medicine to save someone's life, and the person realized this, obviously they're going to be very thankful, and they're going to say, oh, what can I do for you? And if my response was, well, can I stay at your house for a few days? I don't have a house anymore. I would imagine, as long as they believe that I really did buy this medicine to save them, I would imagine they're going to say, well, of course, come on in. In the same way that when we realize that Jesus died on the cross for us, we're going to invite him into our life. We're going to invite him into our house. That's what obedience is. It's our desire to do what God is asking us to do. Now, the other side of obedience is we sometimes start to think that we're doing this obedience. The first myth is that we're obeying in order to earn salvation. That's not the right way to think about it. We're obedient as a way to show our love back to God. But the other, I think, myth out there about obedience is that we are obedient just because it pleases God. Now, I guess what I'm trying to say is that's not the only reason that we're obedient. That's one of the reasons, but the other reason is God asks us to do things. God gives us these laws more for our benefit than for his. Take, for example, I shared another analogy with my boys, and it's this good dog, bad dog concept. And the concept is, if you had two dogs and, one of the dogs was just, always obedient, always, whenever you go to the park, always at your side, and, just does whatever you ask your dog to do. And then the other dog, when you take it to the park, it chases after kids, it chases after the ducks, it's barking at everything it sees, it's growling at strangers, it's running into the lake, getting all muddy, just having a good time. So I shared these two ideas with my sons, and I asked them this question. I say, between those two dogs, which one do you think is having more fun in that moment? And they say, well, I guess it's probably the dog that, is jumping into the lake and doing whatever it wants. And so then I say, okay, so now let's look at this from the perspective of the next day. So the next day, they go to the park again, and the owner of the dog realizes, whoa, one of those dogs is out of control, so the owner puts a leash on that dog. Or maybe the owner doesn't even take the dog to the park. Now, who do you think is having more fun at the park on the next day, and every day after that, if this were to continue? And my boys say, well, I guess it's the other dog now, the dog that's more obedient. And that's kind of my point about obedience is when you disobey, while it might be pleasurable for a moment, long term, the effects can be disastrous. You look at addictions, drug addictions, alcohol addictions, sex addictions, any kind of addiction. While there might be momentary pleasure in those addictions, it is just that. It's momentary, and then the effects are so painful and not fun at all. And so when God warns us, don't do this, and do this instead, it's for our benefit. And so I think that's the main thing that I'm trying to get across with that analogy there. So now, actor Kirk Cameron, the reason that I'm so thankful for him is when he was 17, he was already a famous child actor and on the Growing Pains series. And at that point in his life, he actually made some decisions to be obedient to God in terms of even the types of acting roles that he was going to do. He ended up actually leaving the series primarily because he didn't feel like his character that he was playing, Mike Severs, was being written in such a way that was honoring to God. And so I think that shows so much of his integrity. But that inspires me as well because, when you look at television in general and just, how much good stuff there is versus bad stuff, it seems like there's a lot of bad that outweighs the good, just by randomly flipping through the channels. And for him to take that kind of a stand, not only just then, but, for all the other movies and TV shows that he's done since then, he's continued to have that integrity that's just always inspired me towards, being obedient to God. So with that, I just want to say thanks once more to Kirk Cameron.